Hello, friends, and welcome to the Doing What Matters podcast. I'm your host, Teresa McCloy.
And I'm your co-host, Erica Vinson. And we are thrilled that you're listening in today as we dive into discussions about life, business, and all the things that truly matter.
Here on the Doing What Matters podcast, we embrace a holistic approach to living, a way of life that's rooted in rest and not rush. It's about connecting to our real self, our real life, and our real work, and remembering who God uniquely created us to be, redefining success through a different lens.
So whether you're here to find inspiration, practical advice, or just a moment of connection, we're glad you're here. Let's dive into today's conversation. Today on the Doing What Matters podcast, we are so grateful to introduce you to not only a friend of ours, but Susan Parker Jones, who is a seasoned professional of over 25 years of experience as a licensed counselor. She's an author and a trainer with the focus on healing the hard places of childhood. Through the creation of her signature program, Wholehearted Connections, Susan has demonstrated a profound commitment to helping children and families thrive, recognizing that the path to self-discovery and healing is an ongoing journey. Susan's expertise extends to being a certified trust-based relational intervention practitioner and trainer, where her work in trauma-informed care has provided crucial support to individuals and families navigating complex challenges. She also holds certifications as a coach through the Real Life Process and Enneagram Motions of the Soul, highlighting her ongoing commitment to growth and learning. In her brand new book, The Wholehearted Child, she draws upon her extensive experience and steadfast dedication to guide readers on a transformative journey towards self-discovery and Enneagram-informed parenting. Her wisdom and compassion, understanding shine through in her words, offering an invaluable resource for those who seek professional growth and personal growth while making a meaningful impact on the lives of the next generation. Susan, so much we could say, but we're grateful that you're here with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you both. And also, Teresa, I'm just forever grateful to you for your support in not only helping me with this book, but writing my foreword.
Well, I am thrilled. I've been waiting ever since we had a phone call, Susan, and you said, okay, I'm ready to put it in a book. And I'm like, someday we're going to be interviewing her on the podcast about her book. So the day has come full circle. We've all known each other, the three of us, for quite a while now. And you were one of our early certified coaches in the program and spent much time with us on that journey and in our ongoing community and our network. And so, yeah, it feels like we're launching you out into the world with this book. Probably maybe our first coach, as I say this, our first certified coach who's written a book. I think there are others to come, but you're the first one that has taken kind of your life work and what you felt passionate about and put it in a book. So it was an honor to write your foreword and help you launch your baby out into the world.
How it feels for
It
sure.
feels like it's the birthing pains for sure.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some conversation. I know Erica and I both really connect to the work that you're doing. Erica, especially, even as she works in the space, even with coaching with a lot of kids and things like that. So I know for her, this is connects to the work that I do. So let's dive in and explore some things around the book. So first of all, I just want to open it up with this question. Why the title of Wholehearted Child?
I've always loved the word wholehearted because it is indicative of what I feel like I'm trying to do as I work with the brokenhearted, is to bring them to wholeheartedness. But I also am a huge fan of Brené Brown's work. And in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, she describes the word, or she coined the word wholehearted, as those who live their life knowing that they are brave and worthy of love and belonging. And that's really what I hope for myself, for my children, and for my clients and people that I work with.
And then there's 3 words in your subtitle that you bring out as you continue that on, and it's the words kind, confident, and connected kids. So say a little bit more about even those three spaces.
Those 3 words, I had a hard time narrowing it down because we want so much for our children. As I think about it as a mother or a therapist to kids, I want so much for them. But also, as I think about our 3 centers of intelligence, I wanted to tap into those words that would describe where we go in our head, our thinking head, our feeling heart, and our sensing body. And really, I think those words just define the goal of what we're trying to do with children, especially kids that come from what we call the hard places, kids that have experienced trauma and loss who are needing to heal and come out the other side.
Yeah, Susan, this work is so near and dear to my heart as an elementary teacher, as one who coaches kids. And so to bring those pieces that you just described into the arena and help parents be advocates and partners and really launch their kids out, man, from this wholehearted place. It's just amazing. So say a little bit about what got you started on this journey, because I know you work with children, as you said, in the hard places, but what really led you to go, this needs to be something that others can see? Because much of the work that you do is confidential.
True. That's so true. So, what I do with children also reaches. So, I always try to incorporate their parents. And then I've also had the privilege of working with teachers, especially through the Head Start organization. And what I know is that we can't give our children things that we don't have or things that we're unaware of. And I had one client in particular who was really revealing to me that she had lost herself in caring for her child. And as she described the scene of what was going on with the two of them, because I'm Enneagram informed, I could very clearly understand the dynamics of what was happening in her, and also understanding childhood development. I could understand what was happening in her child. So just giving her that awareness of where she was being triggered and where she was bumping up against child development and very strong little 4-year-old helped her do things differently and not take things so personally. And I was able to see myself in her as well. I'm a mom of 5 children, and I often can see myself in my client and really recognize and understand, have compassion for the struggle, right? In the moment, we want to be better, we want to do better, and we just don't know how to get there all the time.
Mm. So I want to back up just a bit because we're going to bring out some things in this conversation that maybe everybody is not familiar with. And one of that is a term you used describing raising kind, confident, and connected kids. And you mentioned the word 3 centers of intelligence. So let's define that. And then I want to come along and define Enneagram informed, just in case someone is not familiar with Enneagram. But let's start first with 3 centers of intelligence, because this book, this wholehearted book, The Wholehearted Child, is written around this idea of what you just talked about. The parent can know themselves more. We'll dive into that here in a bit, and then their child. But let's define 3 centers, Susan. I'd love for you to take that on, if you would.
Okay. Basically, it just means that it recognizes a holistic approach to looking at ourselves in that we each were divinely created with 3 different centers of intelligence. So I break it down for kids like this. We have 3 informants that tell us what we're thinking, feeling, or what we're sensing. And that would be our thinking head, our feeling heart, and our sensing body. And so the Enneagram tool, and I might let you define the whole tool, but basically it's an ancient personality typing tool that teaches us that we can pay attention to these 3 centers and which one we kind of land in or call home, but that we can become more aware of how we perceive the world and what motivates us when we recognize these 3 centers. And we can strive to integrate the centers and become a more integrated human being. So that will allow us to navigate life in the hard places with greater ease.
And I think for this conversation, that's enough definition of the Enneagram in what we're looking at is that it is this ancient tool that helps us look at these places. All of us on this call love the idea that it comes in a harmony of connecting those three centers. It's one of the ways I love to talk about it. And it's one of the reasons I love your book for parents and children is this idea that it's in many ways very complex, but it's also very simple. And that in my belief system and how my faith comes in is that God created us with these three ways of being informed. We're informed by our body, we're
Mhm.
informed by our emotions, and we're informed by our thoughts. I often go to that love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, that body. Different translations say it differently, but that is all throughout scripture. I think there's other things that support this idea of our created. And so you taking your knowledge in this book to say, because that's part of what you say, informed, it informs us. Yeah, I just really love that and appreciate that language. But let's dive in a little bit deeper. And you in your book do a beautiful job too in the back of your book of going, here's a glossary of terms because you're bringing in your wisdom and your knowledge as a therapist. And so you just give us some ways of going, okay, every time I come across this word, authentic self, adaptive self, you even use some unique terms that you've created. And I'd love to explore a couple of those. Like you bring in this idea of a butterfly self. Tell us more about, because that just makes me feel fun and childlike when you say the word a butterfly self. So what's a butterfly self? And
Well,
why does butterfly matter to you?
a butterfly matters to me because butterfly doesn't start out as a butterfly, and children don't start out as their integrated. We're guiding them, we're nurturing them, we're helping them form. And the goal is for them to emerge as their best, brilliant, colorful self. And so, what I try to do is say, we are the butterfly keepers. It's our job, our privilege, and responsibility to guide their chrysalis, if you will, so that they do emerge as these beautiful butterfly selves. So, I'm just a kid person. I use a lot of terminology to break it down. That is the kid language that I use. And I think with each type along the Enneagram, in describing what those qualities look like, it was more fun to say they will display the colors of generosity, strength, all the different traits. That really, that's the goal of parenting, is not to always just get compliant, but to teach and to allow this beautiful emergence of these wonderful people that we get the privilege of guiding along the way, whether we're parents or teachers or coaches, whoever we are as adults, speaking into the lives of little ones.
Yeah, I love the language that you're giving kids. You also talk about the signs of their dragon. And so, what is the dragon to you?
I think about, I can't tell kids, like, each of us have an ego, so that it tries to protect us and so forth. So really, the dragon is that description of their ego, that part of them that serves to protect them. As children, we take in information either through our head, our heart, or our body, and we try to make sense of it. And we come up with some constructs about how the world works. And our dragon self is there to keep us protected, right? So it will tell us things that aren't always true, but they're adaptive. And so I just use that terminology to help it be a little bit more palatable for people that are kid minded.
Mm. What difference have you noticed in children as you've introduced them to these informants and then the butterfly self, the dragon, and given them a way of naming?
I just feel like you can see kids light up and feel, one, the main goal is for them to feel seen and understood. And two, for them to feel empowered. I have seen even very young children use words that, like, regulate. For example, as we talk about training their dragon and so forth, it takes the material and it moves it a little bit outside of themselves so that they can feel safe in those discussions. And it also gives them some power to feel strong and capable.
So we've talked a little bit, and before we started recording, you were like, here's the three big things that I hope parents can walk away with or caregivers through the lens of the Enneagram. As you were talking, I was thinking of that nurture piece. I was just having a conversation with a 22-year-old guy today about his Enneagram, and I was just explaining to him the nurture, the nature, the nurture, the free will is the adult language that we often talk about in the, but as we talk about that nurture piece, yeah, just that we as adults all receive nurturing as well. So one of the takeaways you said is I want people to understand the harmony of the Enneagram, but I also want adults to be able to heal from their own nurturing, either healthy nurturing that they received or unhealthy, because that is passed on to their child. So can you talk a little bit about even how this book, you intended it for be a healing for adults as well?
I asked people in the beginning, I asked my readers to read it the first time through with reflection on their own childhood story, and then reread it to think about the children in their lives. Because each of us have a story, a childhood narrative that we've constructed. It's not only about what has happened to us, but what hasn't happened for us and how we've made sense of all that in the narrative. And so what we're trying to do is unpack all of that and heal it and become almost like a nurturing, healthy, Enneagram informed parent to self, in a sense, so that then we can do that with the children in our lives and see beneath the behavior of kids and not just interpreting the outward behavior of children and ourselves. But I really hope that people are able to do that, to give themselves a little bit of space to see themselves and to pull that inner child out of the basement where they've stuck her or out of the driver's seat and remind her, I'm the wise adult on duty. I've got you. Please get in the back seat. I'll keep you safe, but she doesn't need to drive. So I think sometimes we do both extremes of that, either completely ignoring our childhood narrative or buying everything it has to say.
I know there are many stories in the book that you're using and examples. Just for our listeners today, can you give us one story that kind of talks through this idea of an adult working through their own story and their own healing?
I've learned so much from people that I've been able to take on this journey of wholehearted connectedness. And several of them stand out to me. Like I had a mom who was so invested in being the helper, right? Just wanting to care, wanting to nurture, who had a child who was very independent minded and who wanted to do things alone. Part of that was her age, but part of it, I think, also was personality and the way that she was delivering her, stating her independence. She was probably a 3, a 6, or an 8, somewhere around there, very assertive stance. And for my client, who was the mom, to recognize what was happening in her when her child was rejecting help was that she was feeling really invalidated and disconnected and felt incompetent as a mom. All those things her dragon would tell her. You're failing as a 2. You can't be the loving person. You're not the helper. She won't let you. Who are your failure? And when she was able to see herself in some of the lies that she was believing in her core beliefs and transform those, and also recognize in her child, she was able to offer help in a different way, where she wasn't so invested in her own sense of worthiness in that exchange, but really what was best for her child. And she was able to nurture and parent herself at the same time. So when she gave me that feedback, I thought, oh gosh, there's really something to this. It's not just me, it actually works in real time. Because when someone is Enneagram informed, they see the world differently. They have to. It's like you now have a lens that is more clear. And it just completely changed her dynamics of how she offered care and how she felt when care was rejected. She no longer took it so personally. So that was really encouraging.
Thank you for that real life example. It sounds so much like loving detachment.
Yeah.
And I'm really able to notice what's happening in my story so that I'm not reliant upon my child. But the whole way of being, as you were describing that, really shifted. Yeah.
Yes,
That
and that I think is the goal, right? That's what I mean too by Enneagram informed, because now I have knowledge, I have information, I have permission to honor the struggle without beating myself up and also know the path to come home to my best self, the best version of myself. So, what I love to do with clients is give them this wholehearted blueprint. This is you, your unique self. Here's what you get to celebrate. Here's what you keep an eye on, the paths to take good care of yourself so that you aren't going into the weeds and when you're triggered with your kids or the people in your life.
I'm a Grammy now. So everything that talks about child, I take it through the lens of being a grandparent and being one of those nurturing people in my grandson's life. Yet we have our own stuff. So there is this balance of I'm doing my own work, we often call it. I'm becoming more aware of my own self, of my patterns of behavior, of my attachment or detachment. I want to go there, but yet I'm also caring for this little human or this teenager or this young adult, whatever it may be. Say more about that, Susan, just navigating of that to the grace that we need to give ourselves.
Absolutely. I think the most courageous and loving thing we can do for the children in our lives is to do our inner work. And I think too many of us just focus outwardly on everyone else's needs and think, I'll get to it later. We tell ourselves, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, just carry on. You're the adult, they are the children. And yet it's not sustainable. Like that mindset isn't sustainable because in real crunch time and real stress, we have words that are coming out of our mouth in a way that we didn't intend. We go to bed worried about what was said and done that erased all the good stuff, right? It just takes a few moments of losing it to feel like you've just wrecked your kid. So that and all the good stuff will be forgotten because that was so powerful. So, yeah, we can't put our kids on a shelf and do our work and get back to them. We've got to figure out a way to do it in real time. And we also have to keep an eye on what they're dealing with in their life. They can't wait to deal with the hard stuff until they become older. Like we have to teach them at a really young age how to process emotions, how to feel safe with connection, and how to be compassionate to others and mostly to themselves. So, it's best if we learn how to do that for ourselves first, because it's easier to teach someone else from a place of experience.
you talk about in the book, Susan, about true parenting. And I love the acronym. There is trust, resilience, uniqueness, and empathy.
Yes.
Say a little bit about those four things and how they emerged as part of this true parenting outline.
Thank you for that question because it is foundational to what I hope people glean from this book is that each of us are different, right? But the very first step is that we have to build felt safety. We have to build connection and trust with ourselves and with our children so that they can receive anything that we're about to teach them. We need to keep an eye on building resilience, and resilience just meaning we're bouncing back to our original form. We need to know what that original form is and help our kids recognize what are your strengths? What are you naturally gifted at? And to celebrate those things with them so that they know. I use the zones of regulation. So, who are you in the green zone, the green happy zone? How does it feel in your body? What are your thoughts? How do other people experience you? Because kids need to know what the target is, right? So resilience bounce back to your authentic best self. And then understanding our uniqueness is part of that too. When you're not your best self, what do you look like? Where are you in the blue zone or the red zone? How do people experience you and how can you regulate? And then the last is just holding empathy for others, but also for yourself. So that when you do get off course, you're able to love yourself home and come back as God would intend, I believe, for us to care for ourselves so that we can care for others.
So grateful for just your description and even the ways we can visualize some of that. And I think that's some of the beauty of this book. You do that in creative play with kids through art, but just giving that language, whether it's the butterfly, the dragon, the colors that you just described. I think so often it is here's the information, but we often stop short of how do I recognize what's actually happening in me? And then what do I do about it? So thank you for really helping us to get some handles around the what's happening and now what do I do about it?
What I hope parents can do and teachers or whomever picks up this book is that they can front load children and front load themselves. So we practice these things and we talk about these things when we are in a good, calm, green zone and not when we're dysregulated and having difficult times so that we can draw from that when we need to.
So, Susan, one of the things you're talking about there is just giving our kids language and giving adults language. I think one of the things you give in this book is language for a parent to talk to their child, but something that a child can carry with them, like green zone, like Erica was saying, my ego dragon, all of these things that are very memorable. I know you've also created a workbook to go with this book. So there's lots of resources that a parent could work through and come around not only for their child, but for themselves. It's fun to see the language that you've created around it as well.
And as an educator, I think one of the things I appreciate the most about your work is that you're offering invitations to transformation in relationships. You're not saying, let's label your child and
Yeah.
really find out what's going on with them, because this isn't just about naming a type or even really a center of intelligence as much as it is bringing that holistic three sensors of intelligence way of saying you are wired and gifted with the thinking head, the feeling heart, the instinctual body that God has given you to really show up in the world. And how can we recognize that as the parent, as the caregiver, and help to, and you use that beautiful language, emerge into that best butterfly self?
Thank you for that clarification because that's the last thing I want to do is to have parents try to type their children. I want them instead to just play detective and start noticing things because what we're trying to look for is the emerging inner childhood narrative that's happening in their child so that we can course correct if we need to. So I'll have kids in my office who explain some conflict that happened throughout the week and immediately say they are concerned that they were a bad child. So I'm picking up on that language and then I know how to combat that language and what they need. So any parent that has more than one child can tell you that kids are different. And so what I hope in this book is that they'll see there are some slight changes we can make as we become in tune with our kids and where they are, how they are navigating in the world that can really shift how we approach them. It might look different for one child over another. And it might change the way in which we ask for connection. I'm thinking of my son who's a 5. He's an adult now, so he's definitely a 5. But looking back on his childhood, he would retreat a lot and build things and be very creative, would just say, can you come out of your room in a way that now I would word that a little bit differently, right? And not make him feel like he was doing anything wrong because he needs space to himself more than some of my other kids. So other children, if I asked them to be in their room for even 3 minutes, that was more of a punishment because they were social, right? Introverted 5's like, yeah, I'll hang out in my room all day. So just knowing your children gives you so much leverage to really connect to them at a deeper level and guide them and shape your discipline if necessary to a really healthy, in a healthy way.
Susan, you have so much in this book that we didn't even touch on. You talk a lot about even some of the attachment things and how early that children form some of those stories. And you talked about, I'm a bad kid or I'm this. What I love about Susan and how she takes things is she takes some really hard things that may feel very in the therapy world or the psychology world and makes them very accessible to the everyday ordinary person, which is one of my favorite things. Can somebody take something that feels really deep and hard and go, I could read this book and learn a lot about myself as an adult, but also learn how to interact better with my own children or those that I'm in relationship with. Like Erica, I agree. Whether you're an educator, you're someone who works in family ministry in a church space, I can't say enough about the resource that this book could be of just understanding that.
Susan, I'm so thankful as well because I think as helping professional Susan, I'm so thankful for this book as well for helping professionals, for educators. Often we get to see a very unique, sweet part of a child and working with them. And what you're doing is expanding the table and allowing parents to come in and be a part of what's happening in their child's lives in a way that empowers them and just allows them really to, beyond just advocating when they notice something's wrong, they're really becoming a part of their child's life in a way that it hasn't been possible before. So I'm so thankful for the language that you're giving, for the ways that you're allowing parents to see their children really in the image of God and the way they're created.
I just, yeah, I have a heart for kids, and I think we could be doing better to reach them. This world is a tough place to be in as a child, and they need to feel like safe to connect with us and to be vulnerable and transparent, know that they're going to be held in a way that will support them always. And so thank you for your kind encouragement. This was the first real book that I've put out into the world in this way, and it's a big deal. And I have lots of hope that it could maybe change the world for kids, at least a small way.
And I will say too, as the oldest one in this room, you may be sitting here going, oh, I've already raised my children. I've put them out into the world and they've launched. I am no longer the butterfly keeper. But I would challenge us, even as a grandparent, to say you are still influencing, whether it's your own grandchildren, whether you're close by to them or you're from afar, or coming alongside parents who are still doing this and still in that stage of I am the butterfly keeper. And it's exhausting. I am flapping my little wings and it's hard. And how could you read this book that you have written and say, let me encourage you? Maybe you get this as a gift to give to some of those parents that you're seeing in your church or in your community or that you work with. So I think there's just so many possibilities for this to bless out in the world. So let's tell people how they get it and how they can work with you. And let's multiply this.
Yeah, thank you. I just spent time with my adult children who are definitely fully grown butterflies, just shining brilliantly. But as parents, to me, it's helpful to just go back and think, oh, that's right. This person is motivated by this or that, and to understand my children as in their type now, just because our relationship is constantly changing as they grow. And so having that information helps me know how I can come alongside them as a parent in their adult world. Yeah, I appreciate that you said that. If someone wants to find the book, they can just go to thewholeheartedchild.com and pick up the book there. It's in bookstores, obviously, but if they go to that place, there's a little free webinar and some free resources that accompany the book. And so that's probably the best.
Great page to go to find out more. You can click right there to find out more about how you can raise confident, kind, and connected kids.
I think as we're even just bringing this conversation home to whether you have children in your life, you are a child of God. And I just, even as you were speaking, Susan, am thinking, what if we get to walk toward heaven a little more wholehearted? This book is for you. We're all on a journey and we're just walking one another home. So thanks for helping our journey be a little more integrated as we go.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah. As you can see, we love moments with Susan. We don't get them often enough. She was such a huge part of our community. And yeah, it's just great to see her, spread her wings and go out into the world with her life's work. I really do believe watched her develop this over a period of many years and just come to the unique way that God has her speaking in the world. This is a full circle moment for me, for Erica,
And for me.
for Susan. We're just sitting in joy and wonder. So, as we close out every podcast, I think at every time when I get to have great conversations like this, is remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. So, today we held that moment with Susan, and it is good, my friends, to be with you.